What I love about my job in radio is what really got me interested when I was 12 years old, which was the way it felt was that the person on the other side of the radio was talking directly to me. And I liked the way that felt for some reason. It was something I wanted to do, to be able to affect people's lives through the radio. Aloha, I'm José Fajardo from Honolulu, Hawaii. A little bit about myself. I was born the second child of 6 kids to a military Army officer, U.S. Army. At the age of 12 is when I realized that I wanted to get into broadcasting. I fell in love with radio, and everything I did from that point on in high school and college was oriented to getting into broadcasting, which I was able to do. And then I was hired right out of college to work for a country radio station, which was very interesting because being a young Puerto Rican boy, I had no idea what country music was. Continued my broadcast career in Texas for 13 years. Then I moved to Orlando, Florida to run a public radio station in Orlando, and eventually I became the CEO. And then the recruiter came a-calling and told me about this wonderful opportunity to come to Hawaii to run Hawaii Public Radio. And that's what I've been doing. I'm the president and general manager of Hawaii Public Radio, and I've been here now a little over 5.5 years. And in Hawaii, I was running 5Ks and 10Ks in the mountains. So I knew my body very well. And I started to notice that my walking gait and my running gait were beginning to change very slightly, and that my legs were not cooperating with me in the way they used to. And eventually, my doctor referred me to a neurologist. And the interesting thing is that all the initial tests came back negative for ALS. A colleague of my neurologist actually came into the room one day and said, something is not right. And right there on the spot, he did an EMG of my arms. That was the first time that a doctor, neurologist, actually vocalized the words ALS to me. My wife, Jennifer Barrett, who I met here in Hawaii, we recently got married in January, just 3 or 4 months before the diagnosis. And she has been my rock. She has been the foundation to everything I do. So immediately after my diagnosis with ALS, my wife and I quickly came to the decision that I wanted to share my story with as many people as possible. The response has been so overwhelmingly positive. Strangers have reached out with personal cards, emails, and it also has allowed us then to advocate for ALS. There is hope. Science is really close, and we need resources. We need funding from the federal government, from state legislatures to fund trials and treatments and multidisciplinary clinics around the country in places like here, Hawaii, where we really don't have that. And so for me, that's the message that I'm pounding is don't look at me as someone who is dying from ALS. Look at me as someone who's living with ALS and who has a purpose right now to tell my story and to help science find a solution.
There's more research going on now than at any time in history into ALS. There are more clinical trials going on now than at any time in history for people with ALS.
That was Fred Fisher of the Golden West chapter of the ALS Association. Hearing Mr. Fisher talk about, the research now is robust. Talk about your experience and what you're learning.
Yeah, so right away, my wife Jennifer and I went into a research mode to see what can we do. So then I also started looking into this Healy platform trial, which is really a unique methodology of taking 4 or 5 treatments at the same time. And the benefit of that is that you're sharing placebos with 4 other groups. So you have a 75% chance of getting the active drug instead of the 50% chance in typical trials. It could be overwhelming, and that's why I think the Golden West chapter plays such a pivotal and important role in helping people with ALS and their families to find information. The introduction to other folks living with ALS here in Hawaii has been so helpful. That has been a direct help and connection that Cindy has provided through the local chapter, where I've been able to hear their stories and how their families are dealing with this disease, which has helped me in dealing with the disease as well. So I can't say enough about the help that the Golden West chapter has provided. You have the opportunity to talk to your neighbor, to talk to a friend, to talk to a colleague about your experience with ALS, whether it's you're living with a disease, a family member is living with a disease, or a colleague or friend is living with a disease. That opportunity is so important. I just want to say thank you for the steps that you're taking. I'm encouraged by the work that you're doing, and thank you so very much.